Shabbos Daf Samach Beis, the Mishnah brings a list of things that is usher for one to go outside with on Shabbos, Isser D'Oraisa, starting with a needle that has an eye, that has a hole in it, that's a burden, a ring that has a signet for a woman, since she typically doesn't go out with a signet, that's a Isser D'Oraisa. Ula says for a man it's the exact reverse when it comes to a ring. If it has a signet, that's normal for him to run around with a ring with a signet, but a ring without a signet, it's not the derech for a man in those days, and therefore that would be a Isser D'Oraisa. Ula holds that women are a nation to themselves, and therefore what's considered a beged, clothing for a man, is not clothing for a woman. For instance, if some men wear sacks, such as shepherds, then all men are permitted to go out with sacks, but not women. When it comes to saving tefillin from danger of being destroyed on Shabbos, the way to save them is you put on a pair of tefillin, you go out to safety, and you remove them, and you come back and try to save another pair. Women should also save them in the same fashion. But what about the fact that women are not the same nation as men? We must say that this Min Daf holds that tefillin is not a mitzvah asesha as dafbrama, and therefore women are mechuyev. He'll hold that Shabbos is a time to wear tefillin, and night is a time to wear tefillin. Therefore, women are in the same nation, so to speak, when it comes to tefillin. Rabbi Yirmiyah holds that a typical woman, when she takes out on Shabbos, when she carries a ring that has a signet, that's considered kilachar yad. That's not the derech, that's a weird way of carrying a ring. You don't carry something that has a signet on your finger. Rav argues, he says, since there are situations where a woman will carry her husband's signet ring, for instance, when he tells her, could you please put this away in a box, she doesn't want to lose it, she puts it on her finger. Or when a woman asks her husband to please bring the ring to a repair shop, he doesn't want to lose it, so he puts her ring on his finger, then it becomes the derech for a man and a woman to wear all rings. The Mishnah continues, one is not permitted to go out with a kulya. It's a brooch, it's a pin that closes a blouse. If you were to wear it to close a blouse, that would be mutter. But we're discussing a case where the woman wears it in her clothing, and that's considered a burden. A woman should not walk out with spice bags or spice bottles attached to her neck. And the Gemara says that if a woman did walk out with these things, or with a key on her finger, Remeir holds she's chayav achatos. It's a deraisa. Chacham say the whole issue is the Rabbanan issue, that she might take it off to show her friends when it comes to spices, because they're not in beautiful bottles. Therefore, this is the Rabbanan, and she's not chayav achatos. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it's mutter for her to go out lechatchila. Why? Because only women that don't have very good smell wear these bottles, and such a woman won't dare take off the spice that masks the smell. And now we go to Amid Beis. According to everybody, there's no machlokes that if the bottle is empty, it's considered carrying. Even though the bottle might have some remnants of the perfume and it smells good, it's still considered carrying. In other words, the bottle is not bottled to the smell that's not there. So the Gemara wants to say, perhaps, according to Rav Ada bar Ahava, that the same would apply if you have a vessel that contains food that's less than a gregaris, less than the shear. In that case also, we won't say that he's carrying food, rather he's carrying a vessel and he's chayiv midiraisa. Rav Ashi argues, he says no. When it comes to perfume, there's physically nothing there. It might smell good, but there's nothing there. When it comes to food, although it's less than the shear, but there's something there, and therefore perhaps the kli is batel to whatever's left over of the food. Lahalacha, Chachamim made gzeros that we should remember the Churban Habayis. And they said, if you have a combination of joy and pleasure, tainug and simcha, those two things combined, you shouldn't do them after Zeichel HaChurban. Therefore, to anoint yourself with oil, that's pleasurable, but it doesn't bring simcha. To drink wine, two people out of one cup with straws, or to juggle wine and drink it, that brings pleasure, but not simcha. And therefore, it's mutter. The Gemara, we're going to Agadata now. The Gemara brings psukim, Hashochvim al mitay shen. It's referring to Klal Yisrael, Yerushalayim, that they put their beds together, and they were over on znus on ish, they were switching couples, and they left the shechva zera there. And the Gemara tells us that three things cause a person to lose his money. A person who urinates in front of his bed undressed, it doesn't mean dafka in front of his bed and undressed. It just means if he does it in a disgusting way in a place where he typically doesn't do it, it could be in front of his table, and he doesn't bother to go to the bathroom. There's a malach, Rashi explains, that loves disgust, and he goes there, and that malach, which is in charge of poor people, will create a situation where you lose your wealth. If a person has zilzul in netilas yadayim, he doesn't care about netilas yadayim, meaning he doesn't wash his hands at all. Not the pshat that he washes with revias and he doesn't wash his hands carefully. But Rav Chizah says he became wealthy because he used extra water. And finally, if a person's wife curses him because he has the means to buy her jewelry and he doesn't buy her and she's upset about that, that will bring him to lose his money. In Yeshaya, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Mechiach Klal Yisrael, the Navi tells them because the women who were married women would try to entice the men, they would go become a skufa with their heads up in the sky. And Rashi says since their heads were up in the sky, it was hard for them to see where they were walking, so they would walk small steps, their toe to their ankle. They would put a lot of makeup on and wink to the boys. And the tall ones would walk with shorter ones so that they looked better. They would also put perfume in a bottle by their feet, and when they would walk by the boys, they would bang it on the floor so that it sprays, and it would be like a mad snake. It would put the eres into the boys, they would bring them a Yetzer Hara. What was their punishment? Midah keneged midah. Everything they did, they got punished back. In the place that they put the perfume, their flesh decayed. In a place where they put a nice belt, they got wounded. They did their hair up to entice the boys, they became bald. Their erva, they have to put a sack. As Rava says, instead of beauty, they had wounds. The Gemara says, some say they even got tsaras. The Gemara tells us that they said, we don't care, let the Goyim take us. We're beautiful. And the Goyim took them, and immediately HaKadosh Baruch Hu made them disgusting to the point where they threw them off the carriages and the wagons and killed them. Why? Because they saw a lot of dam nida or a lot of hair. They were disgusted by them. The Gemara says the people of Yerushalayim were disgusting. They said in a remez, they were referring to znus, and they said, they would say, ask each other, what do you have for breakfast? Meaning for znus. Did you have a well-kneaded dough? In other words, a non-besula? Did you have white wine or dark wine? Did you have a wide bed, a narrow bed, skinny, fat? Do you have a good friend, meaning good looking? And finally, Rabbi Yehuda says that in Yerushalayim they had cinnamon trees that made such a beautiful smell throughout the entire city. But after the Churban, all we were left with was one barley amount, which is at the king of Tzimtzumai. Have a wonderful day.